Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Buckle Up with Dr. Houf. You're listening to this on KTAI-FM 91, The One, and also on YouTube under the Javelina Broadcast Network. So today, as usual, I'm here, Dr. Michael Houf. I'm joined by Kamryn Ware from the Black Student Union and by Alberto Oliveira from Unity. So how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing pretty good.
I'm doing good, Dr. Houf. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Excited for you guys to be here and for our discussion today. So if you wouldn't mind talking about each of your organizations for a little bit, just so people who are on campus and listening understand more about what we're talking about. And
hello, I'm Kamryn Ware, president of the Black Student Union. And what we're about is being an alliance and being a safe space for African-American students who go to TAMU to be able to come to us and be a resource to them. Although we are called the Black Student Union, you don't have to be Black. You can just be an ally who supports us and wants to see Black excellence.
And Alberto?
Yes, hi. Hello, everyone. This is Alberto Oliveira, and I am the current president for Unity, which is the LGBTQI plus student organization here on campus. At this point, we are just trying to offer as well a safe space for our LGBT youth. You know, that's anyone as far as incoming freshmen, students that may be part of our community, or even just straight allies that are, want to join us in standing together and being a voice for our community. As well, we are trying to be a resource of, to bring further awareness onto our campus and to educate as much as we can about our community. I think that's it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. So what I wanted to talk about today is largely the fact that Black community, LGBTQI plus community, and I always sort of heard it as LGBTQIA plus,
yes.
But, and let me just have it aside real quick here. So why dropping the A, and what actually did the A stand for? Because I've heard it stand for both asexual and ally.
So yes, that as well is what I have come to learn. I am from the older generation, and I am a non-traditional student, so I too am learning as we go as far as the complete acronym for our community, which at this point, letters are being added left and right. So there is, I don't think, a correct way of technically acknowledging our community. It can still, again, when I was growing up, it was just LGBT. That was it. That's as far as mostly how I refer to our community. So, there shouldn't really be a correct way or wrong way to, reference our community. But, we are all learning as we move forward.
Both the Black community, which would in this country include African Americans, Native Africans, people from South America, Caribbean, Central America, and the LGBTQI plus community historically have been very marginalized in this country. So I want to talk about social justice movements of the last few years, whether it is on campus, and we just had Sid Blank's conference on social justice. Before that, we had the George Floyd conference on social justice. The most visible Pride Month this semester that I've ever seen on this campus. But I'd like to sort of get your input and thoughts about both at the national, state, and university level about social justice movements. But as you guys said, safe spaces on campus and support systems on campus. So, without sounding totally stupid, what is it like? Because, I have to say this as a older, straight, white, cis male. What is the experience on this campus or as a citizen of this nation coming from a historically marginalized group?
I definitely want to say I feel like I have to try a lot harder to get, like, to let my success show. And I could be on the same level as someone, but in order for people to actually see it, I have to go above and beyond all the time. So I just feel like I always have to put myself out there, because if not, then I feel like I'll get marked in with the rest.
Okay.
As far as the LGBT community, I feel that, even to this day, we are still fighting for equal rights. I feel that as we take a step forward by the next election, we take 2 steps back. And it's unfortunate to think that we are still here at this day trying to, even just, something as simple as getting marriage equality. And we're still fighting for that. Even though I thought that, we had already clarified that, but here we are, another election. And, there's still people thinking that they have a right to say that we don't deserve that important step in life for our community.
So, with a lot of just what we would consider basic human rights, the LGBTQIA community is still being, in a lot of cases, denied that. And, in the last few years, whether it is the non-renewal or the defeat of the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, we're still seeing an assault on voting rights for African Americans, even though that was supposed to have been resolved by the 1965 Voting Rights Act. So, and I guess I have to say this, everything that you guys are going to say to me today and to whoever's listening, I have never, ever in my life had to experience. I've never gone through your experiences as an African American woman, as a gay man, a gay Hispanic man. Let's add that one on for it as well, because that's all, whole other issues with that as well. But this is something that I can talk about personally as a historian. But I can never, if we talk about these issues, and I do in my classes, I cannot connect to it, nor can I relay to my students what it's like or what it feels like. So no matter how hard I try or how much empathy I may have, as much as I might try to be a good ally, and that's the word we're going to get to later, that's something that I can never, ever do. And so I'm reliant sort of on you and other LGBTQ students and friends and other African American students or black students and friends to educate me on. With that, how do you carve out a space in what is and historically has been a hostile nation, a hostile state, and maybe not hostile, but not necessarily welcoming in all phases university? And what does it mean also to be a safe space?
Well, my personal experience of how BSU became my safe space was, it was open. It was somewhere where if I didn't know where to go on campus and I didn't know who to talk to, that I could go to them and they could lead me in that right place. Or if they had an issue that we needed to address, we, as the Black Student Union, we are connected with people like the DEI director,
Jared Lujan.
Yes, and we could go direct them to him if there's an issue that they faced on campus. And just being that space where, if you have nowhere to turn and you don't know who to go to, that they always know they can come to the Black Student Union.
Alberto?
As far as for myself and my personal experience, being a non-traditional student, I hadn't yet gotten to that place where I had a platform or I acknowledged the power that we can have in our voice. And having gotten here at Texas A&M University, Kingsville, is when I saw a different purpose for not only trying to get my degree, but to then be a voice for our LGBT students. Again, that was not planned. It was not what I had seen myself doing while during my stay here at this university, but it's where I was led. And having, for the past 3 years, come in contact with some of our incoming LGBT students and then hearing their struggles, which more or less kind of aligned with mine, maybe not each one of the struggles, but just even to hear of their struggle in being a trans student, which I don't identify as being a trans student, but just to hear of their struggle and how much more they have had to fight to be seen, that's when I realized that we have a bigger purpose here. And as Unity, we will continue to break down these barriers, even just on this campus. We will continue to bring awareness to our community, and to keep fighting for for equality. At the same time, we realize that it can't just be one person. It can't just be 5 of us. We all have to come together and actually stand with each other to keep pushing forward and fighting for the human rights that we all deserve, which again, I never saw that. It was not an idea that I had in my mind if and when I got here. But having seen and hearing these students and, sharing their emotional stories and, the fight that they've had to endure, that's when it just became so much more than I ever realized. And it gave me a bigger fire to, just to be that voice, to be that person, to continue doing what we do for Unity in offering that safe space, because people that are not from our community will not understand how important it is to have someone see you, to have someone acknowledge, the person that you are, even though you have mostly gone through most of your years having the rest of society tell you that you're not normal, that it's a sin to be who you are, that you're going to hell, that you were born a woman when you are now a trans man, or vice versa. So there is, all these roadblocks that are just unnecessary for our community that we continue to still encounter. Mm-hmm. And that has to change.
Do you, either of you, or actually both, ever feel pressure to, or the pressure of representation for your respective communities, that you are the public face, or with every person who is not black or not LGBTQI+, that when you talk to a straight person or a white person or a Hispanic person or whatever, that you're now the face of that? Does that pressure ever enter into your minds?
I can say yes, because seeing as though when I did become, I was young, and though I was in leadership, I had never been of that power. And so when people came asking, like, hey, can you do this, like, about BSU, I was, yes, but it was like, okay, I have to do this perfect, because if not, then that's going to reflect on us as a whole. And it's things like that when you're like, okay, like, I have to be on my toes at all times. You have to kind of be prepared for any outcome, because you, like I said, I feel like I have to be perfect when I do something, because if not, then it's just going to look bad on everybody.
I think in that respect, the fact that I am a non-traditional student, I am okay in being, a voice or being that person to lead our student organization. However, I do feel that it is my responsibility to make sure that, there's a clarification as far as what we need to do to keep moving forward. So, I mean, I don't see it as pressure. Yes, there may be pressure at that moment to make sure that that event goes as planned and to make sure that it looks, as perfect as we can make it. But in the end, our goal is just to make sure that we continue to bring awareness to our community and that we further educate this campus. So in the end, that is what we, if there was any pressure, that just takes it all away.
Okay.
Because in the end, we get to accomplish our goal.
So as campus leaders, and that's what you guys are, you've really embraced that part of your role in many ways as educators of other people and don't feel the pressure. You just have seemingly embraced that role. Now, I'm going to take a little tangent into popular culture here. My wife is a big fan of the show Big Brother. I'm not so much because I end up hating everybody on the show. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, the interesting part of the show is it shows people at their best and at their worst simultaneously. But in this last season, I remember one of the contestants, I think his name was Kyle, had said what many people interpreted was something that was racist. The eventual winner of the show or that season, Taylor, who was an African-American female, I think she was Miss Michigan or something like that, was talking to him about what he said and why it was wrong, but at the same time, she said, I am not your tutor in this. So opposite of what Taylor had said in here is you guys are embracing that role. My question is at this point, and not that it's right, it isn't. And I don't know why in this country it seems to be the job of the oppressed to make the oppressors feel better about themselves. But it still is in many ways the job of leaders like yourselves from your communities or just maybe not leadership. Somebody has to educate people who are not members of the community. Mm-hmm. And I can understand not being comfortable with doing that. But if you put yourself out there, do you have a responsibility to do that? I'd rather say do you than don't you, because I'm sort of painting you in a corner with I'm implying that's your responsibility.
So in regards to unity, I feel that by having the type of events that we have or by having our bookstore window display, that is an opportunity to open the conversation to, many questions regarding our history, regarding what it means to be an ally, what it means to be considered a safe space. So I mean, it's an opportunity. Whether people actually want to approach us and want to educate themselves about our community, then that's what they are more than welcome to do that. But I mean, I don't see it much as a responsibility. I see it more of that this is what we are providing, our campus is just that avenue to start that conversation. And whoever is genuinely inclined to want to be an ally or to want to further educate themselves as far as our community, then this is it. This is your opportunity.
Okay.
Yes, we are not looking to come and convince you of anything. No, we are just providing these opportunities for our campus to educate themselves.
I would like to agree because I don't feel as though it's a responsibility that I have to do. But I do feel it's an opportunity to have those open, awkward conversations that many people understand our culture, where we come from, and there isn't just African American, understand the different cultures on campus, and that everybody isn't the same, but yet we are all interconnected some way. So just to allow people to understand that and allow that opportunity to be present and allow people to come to that safe space where they can talk about things like that is how I feel we educate people.
Okay. We keep saying safe space, and in the political discourse of this country, from some sides, we hear the whole idea of safe space sort of dismissed, that, safe space, nobody's going to get their feelings hurt or whatever. That seems to be, and please correct me if I'm wrong, sort of the opposite of what you guys are saying, is that safe space to be able to have the difficult conversation, to be able to talk about controversial subjects. Is that correct?
I would say yes, because that safe space allows you to just say what you want to say. Mm-hmm. Whether I disagree with it or not, I see where you're coming from in that sense and how it makes you feel. And then if I can't relate to you on a personal level, I can empathize with you deeper.
I think in some respect, a safe space would allow for that type of conversation to happen. But in regards to the LGBT community, we are looking more of it being a safe space for our, incoming students, LGBT incoming students that may find themselves, in that transition from high school to the university, to, having been in a household that didn't acknowledge them, didn't see them for who they were. And that's where, by having unity and offering a safe space, it can be a place that they can look forward to. It can be a place that they know that they can come and join us. And it may be someone that identifies just as yourself, or it can be someone to then share their story and give a sense of hope to that student, and know that regardless of what may be going on, in the end, everything was going to be okay. So that is technically what we are trying to do as a safe space. But yes, we do allow for these tough conversations to happen if that opportunity arises. But in the end, we just want to give hope to students that maybe feel lost. So
safe space, and I wish more people would learn this, can actually mean multiple things. Mm-hmm. So it's more of an umbrella term than just this is one thing. Mm-hmm. And I mean, in some ways, I guess that I wish many people in this nation could learn that, there's not just one definition of one thing, but you don't have to define mm-hmm. something as one thing, because, Alberto, I'm sure you do not only define yourself as a gay man, mm-hmm. and Kamryn, you don't only define yourself as a black female, correct?
Correct.
So, I mean, you both are, and I've known you since you arrived on campus, and we don't know each other extremely well, but we've had a few conversations here and there. And Kamryn, you and I just met this semester, and you tolerate me wonderfully. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And so do you, Alberto. Is that all people, whether they're from the majority, a minority, a marginalized group, aren't just one thing. I mean, hopefully people see me as, more than just one of the larger people on campus. There are people bigger than me on this campus, including my own kids.
Tallest, you mean?
Tallest, yes. Well, there are others who exceed me in many ways, but so, I mean, it's a very human thing to want to define something, mm-hmm. but it seems to me sometimes we go too far and we pigeonhole things. Mm-hmm. And so within these safe spaces, and you talked about when somebody who has a genuine desire to know more, and again, this is something completely outside of my experience, whole life experience, is how do you determine when someone is being genuine in their curiosity, in their desire for knowledge, that they're trying to educate themselves and they're asking you for help? How do you determine that genuineness? Because I'm assuming a couple of things here, and I apologize if I'm wrong, but that leaves you open as well to really getting burned.
So in my experience, and we have quite a few religious groups here on campus, I feel that at times that might be the mistake or the approach that, people may take, is the fact that they're so fixed in their way and their beliefs that instead of listening and trying to understand how we justify our existence, instead they're already in their mind trying to counter what they're going to hear, because they are in the end are going to try to make themselves seem like the party that's correct, which in the end no one, there is no correct or wrong way of trying to explain none of this. Because in the end, all I can do is just share my story as far as why I am the way I am.
Something you said of not like explaining. When people are genuinely curious, or if they're not, I just have to go with an open heart and say that, okay, if they're asking me, I can't turn them down. But at the same time, people with genuine curiosity also have a tendency to ask follow-up questions. And if I can tell you, okay, you can't do this, just don't touch my hair, most people are like, okay, not necessarily debate it, but don't get so defensive once I give my answer.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So that defensiveness, once they ask the question and you answer it, is sort of a tell in many ways?
It's like a red flag.
Okay.
Why are you getting
even better than a tell? I was using poker terminology. But and Alberto, you said something that really just sort of struck me. And you were talking about, and this is true for, in our history, African Americans as well, you talked about justifying your existence, which, again, is something so far out of my own personal experience. I've never had or felt like I had to ever justify my existence. Mm-hmm. And that's just such an alien thought to me.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what I feel our society needs to remember, is the fact that for most of our life, we have had to grow up with society telling us that we're not normal, that we shouldn't be here, that we are not a child of God, that we're going to hell. I mean, you can name it, and it's been said to us. And that's as well one of our struggles, is to if the majority of the people in your life are telling you, or the majority of people that you meet are telling you this, then that's who you have to go up against. And it's not just a couple days, a couple minutes, no, a couple months. No, you're talking about years. And I mean, you can only take so much of it. And that's unfortunately where some youth may find themselves to questioning, why am I here? Why, if I'm not supposed to be here, why am I here? And you start getting all these crazy thoughts. And in the end, you allow these people and all this hate to push you to such a dark place in your life that you feel that it's best for you to not even exist anymore.
Which is why the suicide rates among trans youth are exponentially higher than the rest of the country.
Exactly. So in general, people shouldn't have to go through that. And in general, people shouldn't think that they have the right to say all this stuff, that they are so strong in their beliefs that they think it's right, when it might be right in your mind, but when it comes to others that don't share your beliefs, it is not right.
want to change directions for just a second and talk about the contributions to the country historically of LGBTQ I plus people, Black Americans, is that if you talk about what is truly American culture, music, theater, arts, what makes us American, it seems to me the majority of it comes from those two cultures, as well as the farther south that you go and west, Hispanic culture as well. Mm-hmm. If you talk about Broadway, that type of theater, movies, production, and another marginalized group, Jews in the United States. Mm-hmm. I mean, without people from the gay community, without people from the Black community, we have none of that.
Mm-hmm. It'd be boring.
It would be very boring. But at the same time, then we have, for lack of a better term, but I think it's a pretty accurate term, a whitewashed version of that. So whether you talk about Fats Domino, Little Richard, and all of a sudden we have Pat Boone. Mm-hmm. And so we do see coming out of Hispanic community, Jewish community, Black community, LGBT, I'm just going to say gay community for right now, just because it's a little bit shorter, a lot of cultural appropriation. So, I mean, and that's becoming more and more of a trigger issue, it seems to me, in looking at social media posts, news reports from those communities. So can we sort of discuss and explore that topic for a little bit?
I can say, being on social media, you kind of do see like your culture get more appraised when it's not you doing it. If it's an example would be when for decades African Americans we've been known to wear the big gold hoops, the chunky gold jewelry, but it always seemed like not as proper. But when a white person does it, it now becomes a trend and it's popular and everybody appreciates it. And it's like those things you're like, okay, we've done it for decades, but now that y'all have done it, it's okay. And it's things like that. You kind of like don't learn to live with it, but you learn to like, it kind of, if I'm the only person that's saying it out loud, what can I do?
And then for our community, the LGBT community, I feel that we're now getting to a point where, because we are now trying to be seen, we are now trying to be acknowledged, and you now see quite a few programming on TV as far as, with either a gay storyline or a gay character or, just anything to do with our community. Well, now you have society coming back and saying, well, I think it's enough or it's too much of that. Well, we also have to remember, well, we've been all our lives, it's been a heterosexual, mainstream. And nobody has ever said, well, that's enough. And now that we're having our moment, it's like, oh, it's too much. So I feel that, it is time. It is time for us to be acknowledged, to be seen, and to now share our stories. Why? So then that next youth doesn't have those, has to go through those roadblocks that we, that most of us have gone through for years. And in the end, it's hope. It's hope for that youth to know that it's going to be okay.
Kamryn?
I can say that, though, like, it does suck that another culture has to do it for it to become popular. it is in a sense like you said, hope. Like, okay, we're kind of becoming accepted, though it's not the way we want it to become accepted, and that our culture wanted to become accepted. It is showing like, okay, they're seeing it's not as bad.
Mm-hmm. So maybe what we don't want necessarily would be appropriation, but diffusion, honoring the culture. I mean, if we talk about popular music, and especially the most popular genre right now, hip hop, the difference between, what were the two guys, Vanilla Ice and Daddy Snow. I don't know if you guys remember the hit that he had in Former versus, say, Eminem. So while it seems to me, and please, again, correct me if I'm wrong, one is taking advantage of and one is embracing and honoring. Is that sort of accurate, or am I way off base here in trying to understand?
So, I can't remember the second guy you said, but that is kind of what we want. We don't want you to take the culture, but appreciate and honor it, and not make it seem like you just came up with it out the blue.
So how is that coming from your perspective? How is that determination? How is seeing the two possible different examples? One who is interpreted as taking advantage of it, and honoring it. How is that determination sort of made?
I mean, I feel like within our community, it went from having a gay storyline and it only being heterosexual actors to now actually including actors and actresses from our community. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's just a way to instead honor and acknowledge our community by actually incorporating, these actors and actresses that are just as capable of making that movie or, that play or anything in general, to where you're showing that acceptance. Mm-hmm. You're showing that acceptance as far as their craft, but at the same time, because it's the community that they represent. Instead of trying to use this A-list actor that, yes, they might do a good job to get the message across, but will they understand really what that storyline was about? They won't, because they didn't represent our community. And I feel like that's where someone from our community would be best to offer feedback and say, this is not technically what we go through.
So following that up, because there's somebody out there thinking this, but sort of looking at it from the fact that there have been gay actors in Hollywood mm-hmm. since the inception of Hollywood mm-hmm. who have played straight parts.
Yes.
And so there's going to be somebody who's going to argue, well, gay actors can play straight mm-hmm. parts and play convincingly and get the message across. Mm-hmm. Why can't straight actors play gay parts? And sort of, mm-hmm. Coming back against what you just said.
Yeah. And I mean, we have to also remember, they had to play a straight actor because they couldn't be themselves. They had to live their life in the closet. They had to portray this imaginary person that in the end, it's not who they were. So I feel that they had no choice.
So you can argue that they were playing an imaginary person to begin with.
They had to do what they had to do to support themselves, which I think that we are no longer living in that, at this day and age, we're not living during those times anymore. Mm-hmm. People should be allowed to portray an actor of a community that they are part of and actually genuinely share their story in providing, actual conversations and actions of what it means to be part of this community.
It seems, and I'm, again, could be way off base on this, to be more and more opportunities for gay storyline, LGBTQI+ actors, more black shows. I mean, and we won't talk about Will Smith, but Academy Awards, almost completely black produced, black run, and with Wanda Sykes, black hosted, along with, and I forgot the other, it was Amy Poehler, I think it was, I don't remember. But we still keep hearing firsts, and that seems to me to be a bit of a continuing problem as long as we keep having firsts. But in your interpretation, in looking at the media again, whether it is television, film, whatever, how would you judge where the LGBTQIA or the black community is in opportunities? I mean, if we talk about where it was 70 years ago, it's a lot better. But compared to where you think it should be now, do you feel like there's enough representation and enough of the right issues?
I can say, like, hearing a lot of first, you can tell, like, we're still growing. And I don't know, I forgot which date it was, but I remember they just now banned all forms of slavery. It's like, just now in 2022, you've banned all forms of slavery. And it's like, we still have a lot of progress to go. Though, yes, we've came far, we still have a lot farther to go in healthcare, human rights, regular rights. Just to be on the same platform as others, we have a far way to go.
I think it's, just as anything, this is a start in trying to move, towards the right direction. And I don't feel that there's many, many stories that I think still need to be shared, whether you're part of the LGBT community or, part of the black community. There's still many, many stories that people will be hearing for the first time. And I feel that this is just a start. But I hope that in the end we can get closer to acknowledging everyone and what, and the rights that we all deserve.
What about how members of your community are portrayed in some of these stories? So if we look back at, say, television and movies largely in the 50s, 60s, 1970s, it seems like LGBTQIA characters, black characters, were mainly the stereotypes. So if you had a black character on a detective show, generally they were one of the perpetrators, the ones being arrested, or they were the drug dealers, or they were drug user. Is there still any of that you see that you'd really rather, I don't want to say censor, or rather not see, but that still seems to be damaging?
I mean, I'm trying to remember if there is a particular, scene or, something that I felt was damaging. But I do feel that by now having the representation that we have from our community, people will now get a better idea as far as that we all don't fit that stereotype. And, it's a start.
I agree, because I was really jogging my memory, and I couldn't find anything that was like, okay, why'd they do that? But I can tell it's like a lot more acceptance in the TV shows.
Okay. So I'm going to put both of you on the spot a little bit right now. What does it mean to be an ally of the black community, an ally, and it's a word we've already used a couple of times, of the LGBTQIA plus community? And for those people who want to be allies, but just through, and this is the negative connotation of ignorance, in this case, ignorance, just don't know, how should they behave? I mean, if I want to be, and hopefully I try to consider myself as an LGBTQIA ally and an ally of the black community in my own life, but how should I behave? What should I be doing as an ally? Is it simply just being there and shutting up until I'm asked for help and just to have you know that I'm there for you? Or is there other things, or what is also going too far? when we get into, say, white savior complex or something like that?
Okay. It is like being quiet and like knowing when like we're asking for help and not when you feel like you should insert yourself. But I know I have a lot of friends here, and I know a lot of things they say, like they go to the store, somebody asks them, is their hair real? Things of that, and can I touch your hair? It's like, am I a petting zoo? Like, why do you want to touch it? And just knowing, like, do we ask to touch your hair? Like, do we ask, is your hair real? Just saying, knowing that, basically knowing we're a human. Like, we are going to look different. We're going to have different styles, but you don't have to question every single thing we do. The culture where you couldn't wear your natural hair to school, so African-American women were perming their hairs. And is that your hair? Like, when you do something different, is that your hair? Like, things of that nature, and just learning when to shut up and be quiet and don't get defensive all the time. Because sometimes it's simply, I'm trying to educate you the best of my ability, but if you're getting defensive, how can I know that's going, what I'm saying, you're actually receiving and understanding?
I think it's a tricky word at this point for people to think of themselves as an ally. I feel that if you are genuine in your approach and your time in listening, in acknowledging our community, I feel that there will be no question as far as if you are considered an ally. However, I do feel that with it now being a new message that universities are trying to move forward with in having these new positions to cater to the LGBT diversity and inclusion. I hope that it doesn't get to a point where people are just trying to voice and say, I'm an ally, without actually knowing what it means to be an ally. And not wanting to say they're an ally just so they can be now part of that group on campus that, oh, well, I want to be considered an ally. I want to jot that down on my resume. I want to, put the pronouns on my email signature. Well, actually know what that means. And, genuinely, out of the goodness of your heart, do that because you want to be an ally. And not just to say or show that you are.
So,
which I hope it can be a little confusing, but I feel that people are going to get it if they really try to understand.
So this just sort of popped into my head, so we could almost define it as friendship versus fashion in some ways.
Yeah, in a sense, yes, exactly. I mean, coming to this university and building these relationships with staff and faculty, and even, past Unity officers, already I knew I had a sense of who my allies were. And I already knew who I could turn to if ever I needed advice. And they didn't tell me. They might have not even known that they could be seen as an ally. But they were open to always welcome me and listen, to whatever questions or whatever story I could have. They were always welcoming. And even then, Unity, when I came here in 2018, I think, the fall of 2018, most of the officers for Unity were straight allies. And that was an awakening.
Idea.
Yes, that was an awakening for me to see that they were the ones showing up and wanting to keep Unity active. And that's something that made me take pride in knowing that I could then be that next leader for Unity, to know that if they did it for us, then I was going to do it for my community and for anyone else that needed, a safe space.
So for those who want to be allies out there, and you said at the beginning, it's the Black Student Union is not just for Black students, but also allies and whites and others. So if they're interested, if we have students on campus or faculty on campus who are interested in getting involved, could you sort of tell us when your next meetings are so we can publicize this a little bit more? Do you have a December meeting coming up?
So for Unity, our next technically meeting / social will probably be a movie night, and that will probably be at the last week of November. And then we will try to have another meeting or social in December. But I mean, it's just been up in the air, exactly,
and everything else at that point.
Exactly. So I mean, that's just been the hard part in trying to have these continued meetings during the semester, and instead we just focused on making sure that we had our events in October for LGBT History Month.
Okay.
For the Black Student Union, we are having a study night, but our memberships open back up in January once we come back from school. And I know we're doing events all throughout Black History Month, partnering with the school and just promoting our history.
As a historian, a professional historian, I just sort of like to reiterate Black history, LGBTQIA history is absolutely American history. So, last question, and then you guys are off the hook. What would you like to see from Texas A&M University, Kingsville, moving forward? How can the university support better or more and better, or both?
So for Unity, we have to think about, in the fall, in October, we have LGBT History Month. Well, as of now, we are still waiting for an LGBT History Committee, just as we have one for Hispanic Heritage and we have one for Black History. It's been, you could say 2 years in the making, and as of yet, we thought we were going to get it this year, and we didn't. So I feel that that's one major way of our university acknowledging our LGBT students, provide funding for bigger events, and to just show their acceptance.
I can say that when I first came here, I didn't feel as included with the university, but as I've got connected with higher people, I felt more included. But I can say media is where I say we need a lot of help in, because when you go on the Haviland page, I see it. I understand it's a Hispanic serving institution, but we also have other cultures, and I don't see those other cultures truly being shown other than Hispanics. And
really not a heck of a lot of that either.
Yes. And I just feel like as well as you say that you're inclusive, you also need to show it to other people that you are inclusive.
So, and I'll say it for you guys so you don't have to say it. It's time for the university to put its money and its butts where its mouth is. In other words, we need the money and we need the effort. Well, I'd like to thank you, Kamryn. I'd like to thank you, Alberto, for appearing on Buckle Up with Dr. Houf, our monthly radio show on KTAI-FM 91 The One, and also on Javelina Broadcast Network, housed on YouTube. I really appreciate your willingness to talk and your absolute openness. And so hopefully we as a university, as a state, as a nation, or just as human beings can keep moving forward with these conversations. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And thanks everybody for tuning in, and talk to you next time. You've been listening to Buckle Up with Dr. Houf on KTAI-FM 91 The One.